We're here today because sometimes influencers behave badly. I don't know if you saw in the news the last couple weeks, a creator named Kai Cenat, he's really big on Twitch and the like. He's facing charges now in New York City, including inciting a riot, unlawful assembly. 65 people were arrested during that event, including 30 juveniles. It was chaotic in part because he promised to give away free PlayStations to people who attended the event. PlayStations are, of course, an expensive little item. Some people wanted them. They showed up. Things got out of hand very, very quickly. And these kind of events can happen. Now, that wasn't sponsored, as far as we know, by PlayStation or Microsoft. Sorry, Sony or Sony. But other times we do have examples of times when a brand sponsorship goes awry. For example, Susan, you mentioned earlier to me today an example with a brand called Tula in skincare.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, a judge handed down a ruling. An influencer, Katie Starks, had a long-term relationship with Tula, and a couple of years ago, or 2 years ago, she started posting some content that wasn't aligned with the brand's values. The brand ended up issuing a statement saying that they have a community of respect and things like that, but they did not call out the influencer. Well, the influencer sued, and a judge threw it out 2 weeks ago, saying that she had violated the contract by creating adverse publicity for the brand. So he pointed directly at the influencer contract. I mean, it was case closed. And that just shows the strength of making sure that your brand is protected at the contract level. So,
Absolutely. And it can even be as simple as an influencer not doing the assignment that they had agreed to do, right, Courtney? I know that can be a pet peeve of yours.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like a college professor or a school teacher where you assign somebody something, they, want the extension, which I'm happy to grant when possible. We're all humans trying to live through, various life situations. So the empathetic aspect is there, but then, we're checking people's social and everybody posts everything all the time. And, you say you have like a death in the family, which is awful. But then like 2 seconds later on your stories, you're, sipping margaritas in Mexico or whatever. Um,
Yeah, I mean, we
all
do
of those
social
things.
media for a living. We look at this stuff, right?
Right, right. Yeah, it's my job. So yeah, trying to do my due diligence and work with the influencers.
So, Susan, when things go wrong, what's the number one rule for a brand?
well, we always say that good news should travel fast, bad news should travel faster. Get out in front of it right away. Gather your team, get together, understand the full impact and scope of the crisis. How serious was it? What is the long-term ramifications? How does it affect your brand values and image overall? And then what are your customers and stakeholders feeling about it? And that's where you could use your social listening tools that you have to really take the temperature of the environment.
Yeah, I mean, even going back to my old PR days, sometimes an issue can be upsetting to the brand, but nobody's really paying attention to it. And you can make it a bigger deal by reacting to it because you're personally offended or affronted. And then on the flip side, it can be people who think they still have 24 hours to think this through and issue a statement before the evening newscast or something. And those days are long gone. So, Courtney, what's your first effort in do you reach out to the influencer first when something like this happens?
Yeah, responding is tricky. Like you said, you have to make sure, what was it, getting your facts, like Susan said. But yeah, transparency is really where it's at. You want to be transparent with the influencer, talk to them, definitely go to the source. You want to be transparent in how you reply. People can sniff out, inauthenticity. So you want to make sure that you're giving your brand, the best foot forward, and that you're also working with the influencer and getting that situation resolved quickly.
I think a lot of it too comes up to really carefully vetting influencers up front. I know, I believe it was, well, I'll just say a beauty brand because I'm not 100% sure I know the brand, but a beauty brand a couple months back hired a creator. She was very conservative politically. She posted something. People said, "Why are you working with her? She's conservative politically." The brand stepped away from her. And then people who are politically conservative said, "Wait, politically conservative people aren't welcome to buy your makeup now? Is that what the message is here?" And so they were sort of, the brand was sort of stuck in the middle of a political argument when the brand has nothing to do with politics because they chose a political influencer. And Bud Light, on the flip side, got into the well-known sort of fray with Dylan Mulvaney, and obviously the impact that that's had. So the vetting up front and the contracts and the specificity of what you expect to happen and not happen is really your number one protection. And that really goes back to what you were saying, Susan, with the contract protecting Tula in that court case.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So if you're going to respond, you've decided now you're going to respond, Susan. What's the right thing? How should the brand think about that?
Like Courtney said, transparency, acknowledge the situation, um, explain if you're part of the problem, if you were part, maybe your messaging was off or something was missed as a brand, explain what actions you're going to take to prevent it from happening again. I mean, we're all allowed to make mistakes, just own it. And this is tricky and it depends on the situation, but you might want to offer your followers something, maybe make a donation to a cause, or if it's genuine, you don't want to be disingenuous, but there are ways to really show that you're sorry that it happened.
I think that comes back to really true brand values. We've had brands over the years say to us, "What should we do about this month or this celebration or this holiday?" And you shouldn't be asking us. You should be coming to us and saying, "This is important to us as a brand. What's the best way to express that?" But sometimes the brands come to us and say, "What should we do?" Like, well, is this the biggest thing you support, or is this a day, or those sorts of things. I think really knowing what the brand stands for, what the brand cares about, what the brand doesn't care about, can really guide this
Mm-hmm.
response. So, Courtney, you've done the response now. How do you know? What do you do after that? How do you know if it worked?
Yeah, it is case by case. It just depends on with the situation, the influencer, the brand. If an influencer looked good on paper and then did the campaign, and then right when it's done, we find out they kind of went off the rails. What do we do from there? Well, they didn't do anything wrong during the campaign, but now we know to move forward. Probably not the best idea. There's a ton of influencers out there. So it's not like we have to go back to that one person and then knowing what we know now, that they're not now a fit. We just don't go back to them.
Yep.
I If I could add, I think the other thing that's really important is once you get through the crisis and things have calmed down, for the brand or the agency to hold a post-mortem and really turn it into a learning. What could we have done? Did it different? Start at the very beginning. What did we miss? Did we miss anything? And really turn it into a playbook and best practices.
Yeah. And people, in my experience, seem very reluctant to do that. They're like, well, that happened. It didn't make me feel good. Can we just not talk about that anymore? And, or they think a postmortem is designed to find somebody to wag a finger at. And it's not really that. I mean, if you assume that your team is adults who want to do a good job, then the question is, okay, if person A did something that led to a bad outcome, why did they do that? What information were they given? What information did they not have? What system did not step in to review that? So, those things can be super helpful. My business partner used to say all the time, it's fine to make a mistake once. It's not okay to make the same mistake twice. And I think a postmortem is a really helpful way to do that. And of course, in social media, there's so many tools that let you track sentiment and engagement rates and follower counts, and you can almost see a brand reaction. I hope that very few brands out there have to deal with this, but I think you can see how quickly things can come out of nowhere, like the examples we've given you. But if you have influencers behaving badly, hopefully this video provided you some lessons on how to avoid it in the future.